The farmers we will meet on these tours come from all across the land that today we know as Canada. But for thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been taking care of this land. They knew how to make sure the soil was healthy and the environment was taken care of. We rely on the land to grow food for us to eat. It's important that we take care of the land so it can nourish us. That's why we want to learn from the Indigenous people's wisdom and ways of caring for the planet. We want to work together to create a healthy future for this land and for our communities. This is called reconciliation, and it means we want to make things better between different groups of people.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Great Canadian Farm Tour. Today is our 8th stop. I know, that means there are only 3 more tours left. But don't worry, these last ones are going to be some fun ones. Today we are stopping in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we will be visiting a bee farm. But before we get to today's tour, let's learn a bit about the province from Chelsea, who is the Agriculture in the Classroom Newfoundland Coordinator. Hello, Chelsea.
Hi.
Teach us a bit about your province today.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Newfoundland and Labrador. Today, we're going to get the buzz on bees, but first, I'd like to teach you more about Newfoundland and Labrador. We'll learn our capital city, provincial bird, provincial flower, and our landmark. First, this is our flag. The white represents snow and ice, the blue, the sea, red, human effort, and gold, confidence in the future. Our capital city is St. John's. That's where I am right now. And it has got a population about 135,000 people. And it's actually the most oldest city in Canada. Our provincial bird is the Atlantic puffin, and they can live from 20 to 30 years, and they spend most of their lives on the ocean. Our provincial plant is called the pitcher plant, and that's because it can hold water just like a pitcher. And actually, it's one of the only plants, like the Venus flytrap, that eats insects. So it's carnivorous. So our national landmark is Rosemore National Park. It's full of mountains, beaches, bogs, forests, and cliffs. And we're going to thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for teaching us a little bit about your province. And also, thank you for coming so dressed to the occasion today.
I am always in spirits, so you're welcome, and I hope everyone enjoys the tour today.
Thank you. And now, you all know what time it is. Let's welcome the host of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. Call her a tour guide, call her an inspiration, call her a skeleton wearing a very fashionable human costume, just as long as you call her Colleen Kronikin. Hi, Colleen.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Laura. Thank you.
I hope you guys have an awesome tour today.
Yeah, we'll see you at the end. Okay, hello everyone. I'm so excited to learn some more about bees with you today. Once again, we've had some awesome entries into the Great Canadian Farm Tour contest. So this is just a reminder to teachers that you can take a photo of your class participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour, of their activity books, and post it to social media using the hashtag GCFT23 contest, or you can email your entries to me. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our beekeeper today, Rodney. Welcome, Rodney.
Hello, Colleen.
How's it going?
Great. Yourself?
Pretty good. Yeah, just really excited to learn more about bees from you today, Rodney. We've heard about bees on a lot of other farm tours, like our greenhouse tour and our grain tour the other day. But yeah, just a reminder to teachers that we'll get to ask Rodney lots of questions today. So have your students tell you any questions that they have, and you can write a comment on YouTube, and hopefully we'll get Rodney to answer it. But now let's get started. Rodney, what are you going to teach us about first today?
So welcome, everybody. My name is Rodney. I'm a beekeeper in Newfoundland, just 45 minutes from Gander, which is known for come from away. And there's 8 kilometers away is the ocean. So we're pretty close to the ocean here. It's cold here today, a little chilly. So today we're going to learn, talk about bee life cycles and some bee health to start. And then we'll look at some products and talk about pollination and just bees in general.
Perfect. That's awesome. So we have some slides here that we can go through, or did you have something else you want to show us first?
No, we can go ahead with the slides if you want, and we'll start talking about the bee's life cycle.
Perfect.
So bees start off being a very small little egg. So only the only bee that lays the egg is the queen. And a bee egg is about the size of a grain of sugar. So when you think how small that is, it's extremely small. So as a beekeeper, it's really important to have good eyesight helps. So when you're checking your hives and getting in there, you know if the queen is laying okay. So after about 3 days, it turns into larva, and then it goes into the pupae stage. So like a worker bee, for example, takes about 21 days before she hatches. And then a drone bee would be 24 days, but a queen bee is only 16 days. So it's very
that's
interesting.
To go from the egg to the bee. It takes that long?
So from egg to bee, that's how many days it takes. So it's not very long.
No.
So when you think of it, by the time the egg is laid and hatches, it's a very quick system.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
so there's some different types of bees.
There's different castes of bees. So when you look at they're all different sizes. So the worker bee is the smallest of the bee, and they're all the girls in the hive, except for the queen. And they do all the work from being a nurse bee to a forage bee. So they do all the work. So they'll start off their career with being a housekeeper and nursing the other baby bees along. And then when they mature, they get to graduate to a new job, and they get to go out and forage for pollen and nectar and bring it back to the hive.
Sounds like a busy life.
It's busy as a bee. Then we have the drone bee, which is a fairly large bee. And what's interesting about a drone is, one thing is they take 24 days to hatch, and that doesn't mean that they're mature yet. When they're mature, they'll start flying as well and go on some mating flights. And the drone bee, what's interesting is they do not sting. So the worker bee can sting you when they're protecting their hive. That's the only time really they would bother doing that. But a drone bee doesn't have a stinger. So that's a very unique thing about them.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then we have the queen bee, and there's no king in the hive, so she rules the roost. So she doesn't do any of the nectar collecting or nothing else. She has a royal court of bees that take care of her and feed her, and all her job every day is to keep laying eggs. And she lays a lot of eggs through her career. It can live up to 7 years.
Wow.
Where a worker bee in the summer lives about 45 days.
Okay, very interesting.
So queen bee does a lot.
Yeah.
And then we have next up, talk about bee health. This is a bee, and on the back of the bee and its shoulder blades, if you look, there's a little round disc there, and that's called a varroa mite, which is not a friend of the bee at all. It's a parasite that creates a lot of problems for bee health around the world.
Okay.
And very fortunate for us here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we are one of the last places left in the world that do not have the varroa mite. So I don't have to worry about these. I kept bees in another province before I moved back home, and I had to make sure they were taken care of, or I was taking care of the mites as well. But here in Newfoundland, we don't have that, which is very unique.
Okay. Yeah, and you can see the arrow there. It's pointing to the mite in case you weren't able to tell.
Yeah, so if you were going to think about how big that is on the bee, and if that was on a human, for example, it would be the size of a dinner plate.
Oh, wow. So it affects them a lot.
So you put that in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no importation of bees into Newfoundland because of that. And our bees are very healthy here and very unique status. As I said, we're one of the last places left in the world. So we're trying to keep it that way.
Okay, very interesting. I think we have lots of questions coming in here, so let's take some time to answer a few. So our class in St. John's is wondering if you've ever been stung by a bee.
I have, and that's why I wear something like this. So this is my PPE, my personal protection equipment. And as you see here, here's my veil that I pull up over when I'm working bees. And it's very important to make sure you protect your face. So without that, you would get stung if you're working the hive. I've been stung, not very much, I only get stung probably 3-4 times a year. So
That's a
I
pretty
always
good
wear
average.
it is. I wear my personal protection equipment all the time. So.
Okay, good to know. Okay, another question. How many bees do you take care of?
So we run about 100 hives. So in each hive, there could be an average of 30,000 bees in a hive. And I'm not going to do the math on that because that's a lot of bees.
Yeah, we can let the students do that in their classroom.
Yeah, so see how many zeros you put on the end of that. So that means there's only 100 queen bees though, but there's a lot of worker bees. And this time of year, drones are just starting. So they'll be at their highest levels in about probably a month's time.
Okay, interesting. Another question. Hendrix asks, do bees sleep?
Bees do not sleep. So in the winter, they will go into a slower pace and maintain their energy. But in the winter, they just slow down their energy intake so they're not consuming so much sugar. So in a very short way of saying it, they kind of get through winter, they eat sugar and do aerobics a little bit to keep warm. But they don't really sleep. They just slow their pace down to make sure they conserve their food resources.
Okay, makes sense. I think we have time for one more question here. What happens if the queen dies?
That is not an easy question. There's many things can happen there. So if the queen dies, the hive will actually recognize that the queen is not there anymore because they can't smell her pheromones. And if she had laid eggs before she passed away, they would select those eggs and feed them a different nutrient solution, so royal jelly, and would make new queens. So they would make princesses from the queen. If not, the beekeeper kind of gets in there and kind of helps out as much as they can.
Okay, very interesting. So now we're going to jump to our first brain break video. So students, if you have your activity book in front of you, you can write down the answer in your book.
Did you know bees have two stomachs? One is for eating, and the other is to store nectar and bring it back to the hive.
Okay, we've already learned lots of fun facts about bees, and there's another one. They have two stomachs. So, Rodney, I think it's time to see some bees up close.
That sounds great. So there's a video coming up of some of our bees. It's a little chilly out there today and windy. So these are some of our bees here coming into a hive. It's a warmer day there than what it is today, and they are fanning the entrance to keep the heat down. So you can see the bees here climbing over the tops of the frames, and you can see the wax there on the right side. That's they're joining the frames together, and they're climbing all over the place, bringing in nectar and working away. These are all worker bees that you see here. And on this frame, the last question was talking about queen replacement. So this is the big cells you see that look like peanuts. Those are new queens being built. So that's a very interesting part of the video to look at. And you can see the difference from what a worker bee to queen bee would be.
Okay, very cool. So you already told us a little bit about PPE, Rodney. Is there anything else that you have to make sure that you wear around the bees?
So mainly, I always wear gloves as well.
Okay, yeah.
when I'm working. So I'm also a sheep producer, so we have lambs. So it's always important to make sure my fingers are in good condition if when we're during lambing time. So I don't want to get stung on my fingers. So I wear gloves pretty much, especially this time of year when I'm busy in the barn as well. So.
Right. That makes sense. And can you show us any other equipment that you have that you use to take care of your bees?
Yep. So this is a smoker right here. So it's a nice shiny one. So we sell things here on the farm for other beekeepers too. So this is the other one is out with my bees, which is not as shiny. But this is you put fuel inside. So we usually use some food grade burlap or shavings, and we light it on fire, and the smoke comes out and billows out, and that helps keep the bees calm when we're working them, if they're aggressive at all. Otherwise, we have a tool or a bee brush if we need to move bees out of the way. And a couple other things that we kind of use this time of year especially. So this is a feeder. This is a frame feeder.
Okay.
This goes in the hive. And when they can't get outside, when it's really cold this time of year, we just make sure they have enough groceries.
Oh, so you can put food in there for them to eat.
Yeah, so
And
we'll make a sugar syrup and we'll put that in there for them. Yeah.
Interesting.
And this is a new frame foundation. So this is what the bees would draw out. So this is when it's been in the hive, and this is covered in wax. So you can see the difference. And this is where they would lay their eggs, the queen could, or put their honey in. And there's nothing in this one. This one will be going back in the hive very soon.
Okay, very interesting. So now I think we have some time for some more questions, if that sounds good to you, Rodney.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. Mason wants to know, how does the nectar become honey?
Great question, Mason. So the honeybee brings the nectar back from the flower. So there's different nectars from different flowers. So depending on what comes back from the hive, when they dehydrate it, essentially, it can be different colors and flavors depending on the flowers. So in the video that I showed, and all the bees were in front of the hive and they were fanning the hive in the front, that was trying to get the heat through the hive and the airflow, and that helps dry it out. So they'll fan the comb. All the bees will get on there, create heat, and fan, and it will reduce to a certain amount of moisture. And when that's done, you end up with honey like this.
Okay, very cool. So they try and get the water out of the nectar to make
They do, yes.
Okay, yep. Good question, Mason. Another one here. Is it fun working with bees?
It certainly is. So it's a very, very relaxing time. So when we're busy on the farm, now when you manage a lot of hives, it's a lot more work than some people may want to do. But during a time when I want to have a little break, I usually go to the hive and just hang out in the apiary and just watch the bees, let them do the work, and it's a very relaxing time. And every hive is very unique, so we manage them generally all the same, but they're all individuals as well. So no two hives are alike.
Okay, very good to know. And we have time for one more question here. Why do hives need a queen bee? From Kenley.
So great question again. Is essentially the hive needs some direction. So that's the queen's role. So she provides them with all what they need for the next generation. So she doesn't go out and collect nectar or anything like that because it would be very risky for her to leave the hive. So when she's a young queen, she'll leave the hive, but she'll come back home and she'll stay there unless she has to leave. If their hive is so strong, then they'll start a new community and they'll swarm. So other than that, she basically stays in the hive, and she is the life of the hive. Without her, the hive won't exist.
Okay, Very good to know. It sounds like she has lots of jobs she needs to do as well.
She does. It's all about security and helping for the next generation is what she does.
Okay, good to know. So now it's time for our second brain break video. So students, listen closely so you can write the answer down in your activity book.
Did you know bees are the only insect in the world that make food humans can eat?
Okay, it's time for today's mystery word. So today's mystery word is around. You can put this word in your passport, the last page in your activity book, beside Newfoundland and Labrador's flag. And hopefully we're getting close to completing the full mystery sentence. Okay, Rodney, we learned in our last brain break that bees can make food that humans can eat, and there was a question that alluded to what they make. So what can you teach us about honey?
So honey can be used for many different things, and it's the only, as you stated, it's the only food made by an insect that we consume, which is very unique. And it has a lot of good health properties, especially raw honey, which that's actually what we sell here on our farm, which has all the natural antibodies uh, from the bees as well. And bee honey doesn't go bad either, so even when it crystallizes, so honey will crystallize if it gets cold, or different floral sources, for example, like goldenrod honey will crystallize quicker than some other. Um, some of the most common honeys is white clover honey, which is very popular, and it's a lighter color honey than others. So, and it brings different flavors depending on what it came from.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that the honey tastes different based on where they get the nectar from. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So our honey is very much like caramel flavor, almost. That's what our customers tell us.
That sounds very yummy. I think we have a video here just so we can learn a bit more about pollination and see the bees getting their nectar.
Yeah, so if you see here, yeah, so this is a different flower here as well. This is a cone flower you see in here now. So another nectar source that the bees really like. It's a wildflower. This is goldenrod. There's a lot of different varieties of goldenrod. They all don't provide good nectar sources, but some do. And the bees really like this flower, and we have a lot of that here in our area. Our bees forage all different wildflowers here on our farm, and they share the pastures with the sheep and the cows and our alpacas, and our guardian dogs as well. So you can see here the bees are heading into the hive and through the lower entrance, and they're bringing back their nectar to put into the cells and dehydrate it. You can see it can be really busy time of years. They're probably getting all the stores in for winter because they're always preparing all the time, busy working away. And these are bees that are on a hive. So on the top of the frame, you see that's capped. That's capped honey where the wax is. And once it's waxed over, it means that the nectar is now turned into the perfect honey that the bees want. They know exactly how much water needs to come out of the hive, out of the honey, and before they cap it off like this. So you can see here, just breaking it open, and all this honey here is the perfect moisture content, around 18%. And yeah, it's really tasty. So
Yeah, that's really cool to see. Do you have some honey, other honey you can show us, or any wax products that you have in your store?
Yeah, so this is an example of a candle that I make myself out of the wax from our hives. And this is a board butter, which is used for cutting boards, and it's a food grade product as well that's made with our honey. So there's a lot of different products that you can use that for. The wax also. So once we harvest the honey, we only harvest the extra honey. So we always make sure the bees have enough left behind, so we don't take it all in the fall. So we only take the excess, and that's what we sell here from our farm.
Okay, that's really good to know. All right, we have some time for some last questions here. Anika in 4P asks, why do hives have guard bees?
So the hives have guard bees for a few different reasons. So if a hive is not very strong, maybe a stronger hive, bees will think, oh, I'll go in that hive and I'll take their honey, because maybe it's some lazy worker bees who don't want to work too hard to go get their own nectar, so they'll steal it from their neighbor. So every hive will protect what's happening in their own hive. And that's why they have guard bees. And the guard bees hang out at the entrance and make sure that nobody that's not from their own hive is allowed in unless they have something to share. So guard bees a lot of times will let in a bee who might be like, hey, I want to leave the other hive. Can I come in your hive? But I have nectar. So guard bees will say, oh yeah, sure, you can come in. But if your bags are empty, they don't usually let them in.
Okay, who knew beehives have security guards, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. Mackenzie asks, how long do bees live?
So bees live all different stages. So a worker bee in the summer lives about 45 days, but in the winter bee, which is also worker bees, they're about 6 months old. So the bees that go in the fall, probably late October, November, those bees live until around now before they are replaced with younger bees. But in the summer, it's a very high turnover, but the winter bees are a lot longer. The queen bee can live up to 7 years and
Wow.
be productive. Some of ours are probably 4 years at most, but usually they don't last a whole lot longer after that. They kind of run out of eggs.
Right. Okay, so now we know that the lifespan of bees can kind of vary, it sounds like.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety there. So
Yeah.
I should have a little shout out to Dona PEI, since I got a shout out on my Facebook there. So I started my beekeeping journey actually in Prince Edward Island
Oh, that's awesome.
before I moved back home. So
Very cool. Okay, it's now time for our job spotlight to learn about a different career in agriculture.
Journalists find interesting stories and then conduct interviews to gather more information. Then they write stories from the facts they have found. They spend a lot of time proofreading their work to make sure it is true and has no spelling and grammar mistakes.
Have you ever been interviewed by a journalist, Rodney?
yes, I have. And usually it's to deal with talking about bees, of course, but usually it's the politics of bees and the importation and our uniqueness here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Okay, interesting. And we learned about that at the beginning of the tour, so now we know.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Rodney, we just want to thank you so much for participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour and teaching students all across Canada about beekeeping.
You're welcome very much. And hopefully we'll make some more beekeepers as everyone grows up.
Yeah,
So
for
have a
sure.
good day.
You too, Rodney. Thanks. Okay, such a fun tour. I learned so many different facts about bees that I never knew before.
That was a really awesome tour. I didn't know how important the queen bee is in a hive.
Yeah, she sounds very busy.
They all sound very busy in a hive.
Yes.
For our next stop on the tour, we are heading to Ontario, where we will be visiting an apple farm. And I've heard that that's going to be a very, very special tour, Colleen.
Yeah, apples are actually my favorite fruit, so looking forward to learning some more about them.
Me too. See you all in Ontario.
Bye, everyone.